Hello, the Pioneer viewers. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As a Pioneer team, we will share with you our bait map report on Russia-Ukraine war. The situation on the front line is critical. It seems that the Russian troops have made new gains. Of course, we should not evaluate this war only by looking at the gains, and we have shared this with you in our previous reports. The Ukrainian armed forces continue the resistance on the front line despite all the difficult conditions. We think that especially the resistance on the Donetsk front line should be followed carefully because there are many manipulative reports from the Russian sources about this front line. However, this manipulation should not be closed. Let's move on to the map report where we will share the facts about Russia's manipulative news. Before starting our report, I need to make a small reminder. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. I also read all your comments on our videos and I respond to them personally. Please continue to express your opinions about our content in the comments. Let's start if you are ready and the Pioneer reports. Let's see the Zaporizhia front line first on the map. We start by looking at the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, there is a decrease in Russian pressure on the Donit sector of the Zaporizhia front line. The pincer technique of the Russian forces here has not yielded any results. Or you can say that expected results. According to the latest reports on the Zaporizhia front line, units of the Russian armed forces tried to launch a large-scale attack on the village of Robotin from the west and the south with artillery support. As we mentioned, this was an attempt. However, unlike the previous days, the Russian armed forces' offensives here failed, and the Ukrainian armed forces managed to maintain the situation on the borderline. On the other hand, the Verbov line, which has sometimes been stagnant, has also seen an active day again. According to our sources in the region, the Russian armed forces attempted a similar operation northwest of the town of Verbov. Here too, we observe a strong resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces. According to reports, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to hold their positions. Looking at the artillery activity in the region, we see that the Russian artillery units are actively operating in the Robotin, Malaytok-Makhcha and Orekhiv region. Artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces in Kopani, Novoprokopivka, Novopokrovka, Solodka-Balka and Verbov. Let's now move on to the latest developments in the Walar sector of the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, there is a movement in the Walar sector. In fact, the Russian military's strategy here was wrong from the beginning, and this is still wrong. Militarily, it would have been more correct for the Russian armed forces to concentrate on the Walar front line after the Avdiivka victory. Instead, Russian commanders chose to target the Robotin line. As a result, they were stuck on the Robotin line. According to the latest reports on the Walar sector of the Zaporizhia front line, units of the Russian armed forces tried to advance north of Priyotny after the shelling. The Ukrainian defense here is doing truly admirable work, and the Russian army is stuck here, just like Stromoyorsk and Yorkhin. The Russian army had indeed launched a very large-scale and furious attacks, but it did not succeed. The defense forces of the Ukrainian armed forces managed to hold their positions. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian armed forces positions north of Yorkhin, Stromoyorsk, Vuhledar and Priyotny. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Russian troops stations in Zavidny Bozhania and Starmelinivka. Let's continue by analyzing the latest situation on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, on the Donetsk front line, Russian troops supported by long-range weapons attacked Novomikhailivka, Gorogorivka and Parvomskoye. Here, the defense of the Ukrainian armed forces continues to resist, and there has been no border changes. However, we must make it clear that the threat is growing. There are also similar actions by the units of the Russian armed forces in Tonikoe and Orlovka region. The Ukrainian defenses there are exhausted from the Battle of Avdiivka. Therefore, these attacks resulted in tactical successes and that the Russian armed forces were able to turn into an operational success. Both villages are on the key routes to the borderline, and they are also located in a low laying areas relatively to the Russian forces' areas to control. This puts the Russian armed forces in a more advantageous position. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Horliivka and Krasnohorivka. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Mariinka, Avdiivka and Vodyany. On Bakhmut front line, units of the Russian armed forces are trying to break through Ivaniivsky and Bogdanivka to the main Ukrainian armed forces fortification and Azov. Then the fortification here is of a critical importance and it holds almost the entire Bakhmut front line. So far, units of the Ukrainian armed forces have managed to hold their positions, but they are doing so with great difficulty. And the possible loss of Ivaniivsky of these settlements would be particularly sensitive for the Ukrainian armed forces. The N32 route will give the Russian armed forces in slushy snow conditions the opportunity to use armored vehicles for the offensives on Azov. However, we can say that the Russian armed forces will make good use of this at the moment because the Ukrainian army is highly specialized in destroying Russian armored vehicles. And the fact that the Russian army has not yet found a solution to the Ukrainian army's drones puts the Ukrainian army in a very advantageous position. Let's continue with the latest developments on the Luhansk front line. According to the latest reports, there is a tough counter-battle on the Luhansk front line in Shorbiansky forested area south of Dibrova. The fighting here is really tough for the both sides, and it is also remarkable in the sense that it has not yielded any results. There are also reports that the Russian armed forces troops are attacking near Yampoliivka and Terniv in order to reach the series of reservoirs on the left bank of the Zherbets River. We believe that the Ukrainian armed forces units here need to be further fortified. An opening here would disturb the entire defense line of the Ukrainian army on the Luhansk front line. In addition, units of the Russian armed forces are pushing the defense line of the Ukrainian armed forces in Sinkiivka, but they are no longer as active as before, and as a result, the demarcation line along the Luhansk front line remains unchanged. So what do you think? Do you think it was a mistake for the Russian army to attack the Robotin line instead of Wuhldar? Or what do you think should be the next move of the Ukrainian armed forces? And how do you assess the current situation of the Russian troops on the Bakhmut-Echo line? Do you think that the Ukrainian armed forces will be able to protect the main fortifications in Azov? Specify it in the comments, because you know that I read and I really care about all of your comments.